fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through the dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation. We aren't here to sell you a new additive or, a shiny new piece of iron. We are here to look at the numbers, the hard numbers that define your livelihood.
And today, we're diving deep into a feature piece about a number that, honestly, it might be quietly killing your margins while you're busy delivering bottles.
Right.
We all love the romance of the local milk truck, the whole farm-to-table thing, but sometimes the spreadsheet tells a very different story than the heart.
Exactly. We are looking at a story coming out of the Isle of Man. Mm-hmm. It's the end of a 75-year legacy Cooil's dairy. Now, before you panic and think this is another doom and gloom bankruptcy story, just stop.
It's definitely not a bankruptcy story. Not at all.
No, it is not. This is a story about choice. It's a story about math. And ultimately, it is a story about knowing exactly when to quit the retail game to save the farm itself.
Which is a decision that I think a lot of producers, maybe most producers, really struggle with. We are wired to persevere, right?
Absolutely.
We're wired to keep the legacy going, keep pushing through. But in this case, the family behind Cooil's Dairy One and Kirsty Hargraves, they made a strategic pivot. On January 31st, 2026, they delivered their very last bottle of milk.
And this is happening right now. This isn't some history lesson from the 1980s when the supermarkets took over. This is fresh. And the reason we are dedicating a whole deep dive to this is because of this specific economic trap they identified. We need to talk about the value-added myth versus the brutal economic reality of what we're calling the middle zone.
I think we all have this romanticized idea of value-added processing. You see the milk check, you see the price in the grocery store, and you think, man, if I could just capture that middle bit, I'd be set.
Of course. Everyone thinks that.
I admit, I usually think more customers equals better. If I can get into 1,000 homes, surely that's better than 500. It just feels right.
And that is exactly the assumption we're going to challenge today. I'm going to argue that most farmers are looking at the customer count, and that is absolutely the wrong metric.
The wrong metric.
It's a vanity metric. There is a ratio, a specific retail ratio, that determines if you are making money or, just spinning your wheels and burning yourself out.
Okay, I'm ready to have my assumptions challenged because when you look at the details of what Juan and Kirsty were dealing with, it sounds exhausting.
Exhausting is an understatement.
Yeah.
I mean, let's set the scene regarding the lineage first because it really raises the stakes here.
Yeah, this wasn't some new venture.
No. We are talking about a business that started with Leslie Cooil way back in, roughly 1942. Doorstep delivery started in the 1950s. This passed down through the generations, Ian and Gary Cooil, and then eventually to Juan and Kirsty.
So you have 75 years of brand equity. That is not something you walk away from lightly. That's 3 generations of the milk is here.
Yeah, exactly.
You're talking about grandmothers who bought milk from the grandfather, and now the grandkids are buying from the grandson. The emotional weight of that is heavy. It's really heavy.
No, absolutely not. It's massive. But listen to how Juan described the reality of their life just before they closed the retail side. He called it plate spinning.
I can imagine.
They have 6 kids at home. 6. They have a young worker who is still learning the ropes, needs a lot of supervision. And they had absolutely no budget for relief staff.
That's the part that hits home for me. That is the phrase that every farmer understands in their bones. The no relief staff struggle.
Right.
It's one thing to run a dairy farm. We all know that's a 24/7 job. But when you add processing and delivery on top of it, and you're the only one who really knows how to do all of it.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is. You are essentially creating a prison where you are both the warden and the inmate. You can't leave. You can't get sick. You can't take a day off.
And the schedule he described is just brutal. Finishing delivery rounds at 1 o'clock in the morning.
1 a.m.
Milking starts at 5 a.m.
So that's a 4-hour window, theoretically, for sleep.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
But you know you aren't asleep the second your head hits the pillow. You're wired.
Oh, not a chance. Your mind is racing.
You're thinking about the invoices you forgot to print or the funny noise the transmission was making on the last hill.
And that's if nothing goes wrong. That's the best case scenario. That's if the van starts in the cold. That's if the bottling machine doesn't jam halfway through a run.
Right.
If you have a breakdown at midnight, that 4 hours of sleep becomes 0 hours of sleep, and you're still getting up for milking at 5 a.m. And you can do that for a week, maybe a month during planting or harvest, but you can't do that for a decade. Your body and your mind will just break.
And the mental load. It's not just the physical labor, is it? It's the customers ringing the phone because their milk isn't on the doorstep at exactly 7:01 a.m.
Oh, yeah. The calls.
It's the invoices piling up. It's the farm assurance paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
One mentioned specifically that the paperwork had become a massive thing to undertake.
It always is. And when you are sleep deprived, that paperwork feels like climbing a mountain. You're staring at some compliance form at 2 p.m, your eyes are burning, and you just want to be out with the cows.
But there was a logistical wrinkle here too, wasn't there? It wasn't just that they were busy. The setup itself, the physical layout, had some serious friction.
This is where it gets really interesting from a systems perspective.
A massive amount of friction. This is a classic case of operational complexity just sort of creeping in over time, decision by decision. So they moved the cows to a new greenfield site in 2015. Great for the cows, modern facilities, better for welfare.
Makes perfect sense. You want to upgrade the herd's environment.
But the processing plant, it stayed at the old site.
Oh, I see where this is going. So you've got a separation of church and state, but in this case, it's separation of cow and bottle.
You've just created a transportation leg right inside your own operation. A daily commute for the milk.
Right, which is just another point of failure, another cost center.
You can guess the workflow. They had to haul milk back and forth. And get this, they retrofitted a DX bulk tank onto an old grain trailer chassis.
A grain trailer chassis. That is the most farmer-engineered solution I have ever heard in my life.
Isn't it?
I can picture it perfectly. I bet I know 5 guys who would do the exact same thing. It probably worked great, mechanically, but it's just one more piece of iron to maintain.
Exactly.
One more set of tires, one more hitch, one more potential hydraulic leak at 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly. 5 days a week, hitching up that grain trailer tank, hauling milk from the new farm to the old processing site. That is extra diesel. That is extra time. And most importantly, that is extra risk.
Talk about the risk.
Every time you move milk, you introduce a variable. Temperature fluctuations, agitation, contamination risk. You're taking this perfect raw product, pumping it onto a trailer, driving it down the road, and then pumping it off again.
Every pump is a potential problem. Every hose is a sanitation challenge.
And if you are finishing rounds at 1 a.m., the absolute last thing you want to do is haul a trailer across town. It highlights the difficulty of finding staff, too.
Oh, for sure. You need a unicorn employee.
You really do. You need someone who can milk a cow with a gentle hand, operate a pasteurizer without scorching the milk, bottle it without making a mess, A&D drive a delivery route in the dark on icy roads.
And fix the van when it breaks down at the top of the hill.
Right, with a roll of duct tape and a pair of pliers.
Those people don't exist. Or if they do, you can't afford them on the margins of a small delivery route. You're looking for a COO, a mechanic, a food scientist, and a laborer all rolled into one paycheck. It's asking for the impossible.
So that is the human cost?
Yeah.
That is the why behind the burnout. But let's zoom out and look at the industry structure, because Cooil's Dairy wasn't just unlucky, they were stuck. They were stuck in what we are calling the middle zone.
Okay.
This is crucial for anyone listening who is, maybe thinking about starting a creamery or who is currently running one and feeling that same pinch.
I like this concept of the middle zone. Break that down for us. Because usually we think of businesses as just small, medium, or large. Why is the middle so dangerous? Usually the middle is safe. It's the compromise.
In processing, the middle is the kill zone. Think of it as a spectrum of milk delivery. On one end, you have the scale operators. Look at McQueen's Dairies in Scotland. They are huge. 11 depots, 200 staff, massive growth.
They're a logistics company that happens to sell milk.
Precisely. They have economies of scale. If a van breaks down, they have a fleet manager and a spare van.
If a driver calls in sick, they have a roster of other drivers to call. They have purchasing power on fuel, on glass, on vehicles. They are buying bottles by the shipping container, not by the pallet.
Exactly. Their unit cost just drops and drops because their volume is massive.
Yeah.
Then go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the micro-operators. The source mentions a guy named Gareth Baird in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
He started with 0 employees. 0. He delivers maybe 120 bottles a night.
Low overhead. Extremely low.
0 overhead, practically. He's doing it himself in his own vehicle. If he wants to stop for a week, he stops. If he makes $1, it's $1 in his pocket. He doesn't have a payroll tax headache. He doesn't have an HR department. He doesn't have a fleet of vehicles to insure and maintain.
So he's nimble. He's flexible. He has no fixed costs tying him down. So where does Cooil sit in all this?
They are right in the dangerous middle. They were milking 120 to 130 cows. They had a staff of 5, Juan, Kirsty, Mark, Brian, Lorna. They were serving 850 households.
But see, that sounds like a solid business, though. 850 homes, that's a lot of milk. That's a lot of community impact. If you told me you had 850 customers, I'd say you were winning.
It sounds like a lot, but here is the trap. They were too big to run on 0 overhead like Gareth Baird. They needed staff. They needed a real bottling line. They needed multiple vans.
Okay.
But they were too small to utilize that expensive equipment efficiently. They had the cost of the big guys, but the volume of the small guys.
So it's the uncanny valley of business models.
That's a great way to put it.
You have all the headaches of a corporation, the HR, the compliance, the maintenance contracts, and you have all the resource constraints of a family farm.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to buy the industrial-grade pasteurizer, but you're only running it for 2 hours a day. The rest of the time, it's just sitting there depreciating.
And that's a killer. That idle time is invisible on a cash flow statement, but it's eating you alive.
Precisely. And historically, this is where the industry has collapsed. In the 1970s, UK milk delivery was 99% doorstep. 99. By the late 2010s, it was down to 3%.
Oh.
That collapse didn't happen to the McQueens of the world. They consolidated and grew. It happened to the thousands and thousands of Cooil's dairies that couldn't bridge that gap between Family Helper and industrial logistics.
It's interesting because I think a lot of farmers, myself included, we look at that middle ground as the goal.
Right. It seems like the sweet spot.
You think, I don't want to be a factory, but I want to be bigger than a hobby. But what you're saying is that specific size, 120 cows, 800 customers, is actually the most fragile place to be.
It's quicksand.
You're swimming in the deepest part of the ocean with the smallest life vest.
It is the bleed-out zone. You are working harder than the big guys for less margin than the small guys. And this brings us to the core metric, the number that really defines this failure point, the retail ratio.
Okay, let's unpack this ratio. Because as I said earlier, I look at 850 households and I think, wow, that's a success.
Okay.
I'm doing the math in my head. 850 stops, maybe 2 liters per stop. That's a decent amount of milk flow.
850 households is a vanity metric. It feels good. It looks busy. It makes for a good story in the local paper.
But it's not the real story.
No, you have to look at the milk flow relative to your total production. At Cooil's Dairy, 80% of their milk was going to the creamery, the wholesale market.
80%?
Only about 20% was going to those 850 households.
Oh, wait, stop right there. Only 20%. So for every 5 cans of milk coming out of that parlor, only 1 was going into their own bottles.
That's right.
And the other 4 were just leaving on a tanker truck, like a standard everyday farm.
Correct. But here is the kicker, and this is the most important part of this whole deep dive, that 20% of retail milk had to carry 100% of the fixed costs for the processing plant.
Ouch. Okay. When you put it that way, the math gets ugly really, really fast.
It's brutal.
You have a pasteurizer, a bottler, the building itself, the floor drains, the insurance, the vans, the wages for the delivery drivers.
Yeah.
And you are only pushing 20% of your potential volume through it.
Think about utilization. If you buy a combine and only cut your own 100 acres with it, that's a very expensive combine per acre.
Right. You need custom work to make it pay.
It's the same with the bottling line. 20% utilization means each liter of milk that goes through it carries 5 times the fixed cost compared to a plant that's running at full capacity.
And the market doesn't care about your utilization.
Yeah.
You can't charge 5 times the price for the milk just because you aren't running your machine enough.
Not a chance.
The customer pays for the milk, not for your inefficiency. They don't care if your pasteurizer is sitting there idle for 22 hours a day. That's your problem, not theirs.
Exactly. Let's look at the hard numbers on the equipment. A basic tiny batch pasteurizer for a micro setup for the Gareth Baird type operator might be $14,000.
Okay, manageable.
Cooil's wasn't micro. They needed a real facility. We're talking $62,000 to $350,000 for a proper setup. And that's before the building.
Plus the building, plus the installation, plus the inevitable upgrades the inspector demands when they show up. Oh, you need a different kind of floor drain here.
That wall needs to be stainless steel. All of that. So let's just take a hypothetical bottling line. A modest one. Say it costs $150,000 and it has a 12-year life.
Pretty standard.
That is roughly $12,500 a year in depreciation. That is the silent killer. It's money you have to set aside every single year just to replace the machine when it dies. It's not profit.
So if they have 850 customers, let me do some quick farmer math here. 12,500 divided by 850, wow, that's almost $15 per customer per year.
Right. Before you buy the glass bottle, before you pay the driver, before you pay for the diesel, before you pay yourself, you are starting $15 in the hole per customer just on machine depreciation.
And that's if you actually set the money aside, which, let's be honest, most of us don't.
Of course not.
We use that cash flow to pay bills, and then 12 years later, when the machine finally gives up the ghost, we panic because the bank account is empty. We treat depreciation as profit, which is the oldest sin in farming.
That is the definition of the trap. And here's the opportunity cost aspect that really struck me. This is the human element of the math. Every hour Juan spent nursing that old bottling machine, trying to keep a 15-year-old filler running at 1 o'clock in the morning, was an hour he was not spending on the 80% of the business that actually paid the bills.
The cows.
The cows, the genetics, the forage quality, the transition cow protocols, the stuff that generates the wholesale check that keeps the lights on.
That is a profound realization. I mean, it really is. If the wholesale check is paying 80% of the bills, but the retail side is taking up 80% of your attention and your stress, your business is dangerously out of alignment.
You are neglecting the profit center to subsidize the hobby.
Oof. Subsidizing the hobby. That is a tough pill to swallow, but that is what the math says, isn't it?
It is.
If the retail side isn't paying for its own replacement parts, its own depreciation, then the cows are subsidizing the bottles. You are essentially taking money from the milk check to pay for the privilege of being a milkman. You are paying a fee to be tired.
Paying a fee to be tired. That's perfect. So surely there are people making this work. It can't be impossible. We see local dairies thriving. I see the trucks on the road.
Yeah, what's the secret sauce? What separates the successes from the ones caught in this trap?
It's not impossible, but you have to get the ratio right. You have to commit. Let's look at a success story on the very same island, Cronk Allen Farm.
Okay, same island, same regulations, same cost of living. What are they doing differently?
Carl Huxham runs Cronk Allen. He milks 40 cows, a much smaller.
Ori cows, okay.
But here is the difference. He sends 100% of his milk to retail via 9 delivery rounds. 100%.
Ah, so he sized the herd to the bottle, not the other way around.
Exactly. Nothing goes to the creamery. His equipment is fully utilized because the entire farm's output flows through it every single day.
The revenue from the milk supports the assets completely. He doesn't have a wholesale side subsidizing a retail side. He is one unified, vertically integrated business.
Correct. He's not a dairy farm with a bottling side hustle. He is a bottling plant that happens to own its own cows.
That's a great distinction. His 40 cows are employees of the bottling plant, essentially. Every drop they produce has a destination that pays the premium. There's no waste. There's no dilution.
And then let's look at a parallel from North America, because this isn't just a UK thing. Clark Farms in New York. They were in a situation very, very similar to Cooil's. They were processing about 25% of their milk, roughly 3,000 gallons a week.
Which is a decent amount of milk. That's no small operation. 3,000 gallons a week takes real infrastructure. It's not something you do in your garage.
It is, but the remaining 75% was still being trucked off. They shut down their creamery in January 2026, practically the same week as Cooil's. It's like there was something in the water.
So what was their logic? Was it an old machine that broke down or something?
It was pure margin analysis. They just sat down and did the hard math on the premium. They were making an extra $1.15 to $2.15 per gallon on the retail milk.
Which sounds good on paper. $1 or $2 extra is $1 or $2 extra.
It does. But to get that premium, They calculated they were putting in 70 to 90 extra hours a week.
90 hours a week? For a couple of bucks a gallon on a quarter of the herd? That is insanity. That's slave labor.
When they looked at the labor, the stress, the management complexity, and the fact that 75% of the milk was leaving anyway, the margin premium wasn't worth the life cost.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
It sounds like unpaid family labor is the invisible line item on so many of these P&Ls.
It's the biggest subsidy in agriculture.
It is. If you actually had to cut a check to a stranger to do those 90 hours, the business would be insolvent instantly. You'd be bankrupt in a month.
100%. If you can't afford to pay someone else to do it, you aren't running a business. You are buying yourself a low-paying, high-stress job, and a job that comes with a lot of risk.
So these alternative models are popping up, though, right? It's not just doorstep delivery anymore. I'm seeing a lot of these vending machines. I know a few guys who swear by them.
The vending model is interesting.
They just put a little shed at the end of the driveway, put a fancy machine in it, and collect the cash. Seems simple.
Vending is growing fast in the UK, and we're seeing it here now, too. The beauty of it is the low labor. The customer drives to you, they fill their own bottle.
I like that. No 1 a.m. delivery rounds. No van maintenance, no worrying about ice on the roads or a customer's dog chasing you down the driveway.
But the trade-off is volume and connection.
Yeah.
You don't have that doorstep loyalty. You're not a service, you're a product.
Right.
If it rains, people might not come. If it's cold, they'll just grab milk at Tesco or Walmart.
Yeah.
And you lose that whole community service aspect that Cooil's was so famous for, checking on the elderly, being the eyes and ears of the neighborhood.
True. A vending machine doesn't notice that Mrs. Gable hasn't picked up her newspapers for 3 days.
A vending machine doesn't catch criminals, as the article pointed out.
Well, I'd argue catching criminals isn't in my job description as a dairy farmer anyway. But I get the point. You lose the brand stickiness. A vending machine is a transaction. A milkman is a relationship.
Right. What about the community-supported agriculture model, the CSA approach?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of these. Stroud Micro Dairy was one, right?
Exactly. This is where the community prepays for shares in the dairy's output. It's fantastic for cash flow. You get the money up front, which is a farmer's dream.
Right.
It stabilizes the income, but
There's always a but.
governance, meetings.
Oh, count me out. That sounds like my personal nightmare.
I knew you'd say that. It involved heavy community engagement. You have a board of directors made up of your customers. You have to give annual reports. You have to explain to a committee why the milk yield is down this week.
Yeah, I would rather wrestle a fresh heifer than sit in a board meeting explaining lactation curves to a committee of suburbanites.
Huh?
Why is the milk a little thin today? Well, Karen, it's because of the heat stress index and a bad batch of silage. I do not want to have that conversation.
You don't want to justify your management decisions to people who have never worn muck boots.
Never. So every model has a cost. The Cooil's model failed because it was stuck in the middle. The Kronk-Allen model works because it's 100% committed. The vending model works on low labor. The CSA works on high engagement.
You have to pick one. You have to pick a lane. You can't be a little bit of everything. You cannot be a full-scale wholesaler A&D, a half-scale retailer without bleeding cash or sanity or both.
Let's talk about the future, though, because we always hear that technology is going to save us. I keep hearing about these on-farm processing robots. Lily has the orbiter, right? Isn't that the ultimate solution? You just plug it in and it bottles the milk for you.
It sounds like the dream, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Lily Orbiter.
Mm.
Fully automated pasteurizing, bottling, labeling.
Yeah.
It connects directly to the milking robot.
You hook it up to the robot, you go to sleep. You wake up in the morning to pallets of bottled milk. It removes the human element from the 1 a.m. shift. It solves the labor problem.
Here is the reality check. As of right now, there are about 5 of these units operating in the Netherlands and Belgium. 5. They're expanding to Germany.
So early days, very early.
But in North America,
Yeah.
the webpage is live. Sure, it looks
Yeah.
pretty. There are some nice videos, but there is no availability date, no pricing, no support network,
So it's vaporware for us right now. It's a brochure, not a machine you can actually buy and install.
essentially. I mean, even the Lily Astronaut A5 next milking robot isn't due until after 2026. If the orbiter is behind that in the product pipeline, we could be talking years, 2028, 2030.
And if your bottling line is 12 years old and rattling like a bag of bolts today, you can't wait until 2028 for a robot to save you.
No,
You'll be out of business before the technician even arrives to pour the concrete pad for it.
exactly. And this is a huge point for everyone listening. Don't wait for technology to save a broken business model. If your bottler is dying now, You have to make a decision now with the options you have now. Cooil's understood this. They exited on their own terms while the farm was still healthy, rather than waiting for a catastrophic breakdown to force their hand. They controlled the landing.
That's a key point. They exited into a safety net.
Yes, the creamery, the local co-op, took them back. They had a market for that 80%, and they were able to put the other 20% on that same truck.
And that's not guaranteed, is it, in this market? Especially for a smaller producer.
Oh, and looking at the market pressures, that safety net might be getting holes in it. The AHDB, that's the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board in the UK, is warning that farm gate prices are under pressure into mid-2026.
We're feeling that here, too.
Wholesale volatility is real. Processors are looking to cut costs, improve efficiency, not add small, complex pickups from farms that just drop their retail route.
That's the scary part. It creates a vicious cycle. As wholesale prices drop, the temptation to go retail increases. You see the milk check shrinking and you think, I need to take control. I need to bottle it myself. The co-op is screwing me.
But that is a trap. It's a panic move. If you jump into retail because you are panicked about wholesale prices, you are making an emotional decision, not a structural one.
And you're probably undercapitalized.
You are. And if you fall into that middle zone, you are just increasing your costs while your core revenue is already real. You are doubling down on risk when you can least afford it. You are adding debt and labor to a situation that is already cash poor.
So don't pivot to retail out of desperation. Pivot to retail only if you are ready to go all in like Kronk Allen. Do it from a position of strength, not weakness.
Precisely. Now, I want to hit on some contrarian takes, things that go against the grain of what you usually hear in the industry coffee shops.
My favorite part.
Stuff people whisper but don't say out loud.
Let's hear them. I love a good argument.
First one, surge demand is a lie.
A lie. Explain.
Cooil's peaked at over 1,000 homes during COVID. Everyone was locked down. Everyone wanted milk delivered to their door. It felt like a boom. It felt like the new normal. We all thought the world had changed forever.
Oh, yeah. We all remember the panic buying. People were buying milk and toilet paper like they were going out of style. They wanted the security of the milkman. It felt like a return to the 1950s.
But it was a blip. It dropped back to 850. The lesson here is never invest based on the peak.
Right.
If you saw that COVID surge and went out and bought a bigger van or a faster bottling line to handle that 1,000 customer demand, you are now sitting on excess capacity. You have to invest based on the plateau, the baseline, not the spike.
That's good advice for any business, honestly. Trees don't grow to the sky, and consumer habits snap back faster than rubber bands. As soon as the grocery stores opened back up and felt safe, convenience won. The milkman is great, but the supermarket is easy, and it's on the way home from work.
Second contrarian take, genetics versus the bottle. This is right up your alley.
Oh, I have some strong thoughts on this. Let's go.
Most co-ops, most processors, pay premiums for butterfat and protein. We spend decades, generations, breeding cows for high components. We look at sires, we look at genomics, we feed for it.
We chase that A2A2, we chase the high butterfat. We look at the bull proofs, and we want plus fat, plus protein. That is where the bonus check comes from on the wholesale market. That is how you make real money on the milk truck.
But what happens when you take that high component, premium generating milk, and put it into a standard retail bottle?
You sell it for a flat price. A customer pays, say, $2 for a quart of milk, whether it has 3.5% fat or 4.5% fat. They generally don't read the label that closely. They see whole milk and they grab it.
Exactly. You are giving away the premium for free. You're giving away your genetic progress. If you are a high-component herd, shifting to a flat-priced retail model might actually lower your effective price per pound of solids.
The cheese plant pays you for that extra protein. The doorstep customer probably doesn't even notice it.
Unless you have a truly niche product.
Right. That's the exception that proves the rule. Look at Mark at Promise Valley on Vancouver Island, who the article mentioned. He has an A2A2 Guernsey herd.
Now that is a specific product. Guernseys give that golden-colored milk, super high fat, A2A2. It is visibly different in the glass. It tastes different. It has a story.
He processes it all on farm, and it works. The niche product warrants the retail effort because the customer can see and taste the difference, and they'll pay a significant premium for it.
But if you are just putting standard Holstein milk in a bottle, you might be better off taking the component check from the co-op and focusing on what you're good at, making high-quality milk efficiently.
That is a massive point. If you are generic but doing it yourself, you are working harder to give away your breeding advantage. You're effectively devaluing your own genetic progress. You spent 20 years breeding for protein, and now you're selling it to people who don't care and won't pay for it.
Third take, and this is a big one, price ceilings versus freedom. Cooil's was on the Isle of Man. The government sets the price, 90 pence per pint. They couldn't raise prices to cover their rising fuel and labor costs.
Which is a complete nightmare. It's a regulated utility at that point, not a business. But here in North America, we have pricing freedom. We can charge whatever we want. If I want to charge $10 a gallon for my milk, I can.
In theory. But do you?
Well, no. You have to stay competitive with the grocery store. Or at least that's what we tell ourselves. We look at Walmart's price and say, I can't be double that. No one will buy it.
And there is the trap. If you only charge $1 more than the grocery store, are you really covering that unpaid family labor we talked about? Are you covering the depreciation on the bottler, the insurance on the van?
Probably not.
So pricing freedom is an illusion if your costs are out of control, or if you're too scared to charge what your product is actually worth.
You end up self-regulating your price down to stay competitive, and you cannibalize your own margin. You become your own worst regulator. You are so scared to charge the real cost of the milk that you end up subsidizing the customer with your own sweat and your family's time.
It's heavy stuff. It really makes you rethink the whole farm-to-table dream. It's not that it's a bad dream, it's just that the math is unforgiving.
The math is neutral. It doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care about your grandfather's legacy. It only cares about the ratio. Is the enterprise profitable or not?
So let's boil this down. I'm a farmer. I'm driving to the feed store right now. Just finished listening to this. What do I need to do? Give me the actionable drill down.
All right, hit me. What's the immediate action? What do I do this week?
This week, calculate your unpaid labor subsidy.
Okay, how do I do that? Break it down.
Sit down tonight with a notepad. Look at the hours you and your family spend on the retail side. Everything. Processing, bottling, cleaning, delivering, invoicing, chasing down payments. All of it. Then assign a real market rate to that time. What would you have to pay a stranger? $20 an hour, $25. Whatever a reliable relief worker costs in your area.
That number is going to be scary big, I can tell you that right now.
Calculate it. Then look at your retail profit and loss statement. If the profit from the bottles cannot cover that hypothetical labor cost, you are losing money. Period. You are paying for the privilege of delivering milk. You have to stop lying to yourself about the profitability. If you wouldn't do that job for a stranger for that wage, why are you doing it for yourself?
Wow, okay. That's a hard look in the mirror. What's the medium-term strategy, say, 3 to 6 months out?
Year 8 audit.
This relates to the equipment life you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Most bottling lines, pasteurizers, fillers. They have about a 12-year effective service life before maintenance costs just explode in reliability tanks. Go out to the plant and check the age on your key pieces of equipment. If anything is past year 8, you are officially in the red zone.
You need a plan. You can't just cross your fingers and hope it keeps running.
You need to start planning the exit or the upgrade NOW. Do not wait for the breakdown at 2 in the morning. If you're at year 9, you have 3 years to save the cash for a full replacement. If that cash isn't already being set aside in a separate account, you have a crisis coming. You need to know if you are winding down this enterprise or gearing up for a major reinvestment.
Got it. Don't let the machine decide your future. You decide. So what's the long-term plan? 1 to 2 years out.
A 30% threshold.
This is that retail ratio you talked about.
Exactly. Look at your growth plan for the farm. If you are planning on adding cows, you are likely diluting your retail ratio. Every new cow that adds milk to the bulk tank without adding a corresponding number of retail customers pushes you closer to that inefficient middle zone.
So if adding cows pushes your retail ratio below 30%, meaning less than 30% of your total milk is going into your own bottles, you are in the danger zone.
You are Cooil's Dairy.
You are drifting into inefficiency. You have 2 clear choices at that point. Either shrink the herd to match the retail demand and go all in like Kronk Allen, or drop the retail side completely to focus on running an efficient wholesale herd like Cooil's and Clark Farms did.
Do not straddle the fence.
Because the middle of the road is where you get run over.
The middle is where you get crushed.
You know, despite the sadness of seeing a 75-year brand come to an end, I actually find this story really encouraging.
How so? That's interesting.
Because Cooil's Dairy didn't crash and burn. They didn't lose the farm. They didn't go bankrupt. They are still milking 120 cows tomorrow morning. Juan is still a farmer. Kirsty is still running the business.
Extreme.
They just made a tough strategic decision to cut off the limb that was threatening the body. They saved the core business.
That is the definition of a success story in my book. Survival and adaptation. It takes way more courage to stop something and pivot than it does to just keep going blindly down a path because of tradition.
And being able to see your kids, being home for dinner.
And getting more than 4 hours of sleep a night.
Amen to that. That's worth more than any premium on a bottle of milk.
So check your ratio. Do the hard math. Don't let sentimentality or pride drive your business into the ground.
This has been another Bullvine podcast from the Bullvine Podcast. For more straight-talking industry analysis, head to www.thebullvine.com.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're out with new episodes every day, and upcoming topics will be, well, we're going to look at the hidden costs of transition cow mismanagement. Another place where money just silently leaks out of the bucket.
Always something to fix. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.